That's right, Call of Duty is back on Nintendo platforms. Welcome back to Switch News. If you love all things Nintendo, go down there and subscribe. Let's start with a couple other stories and then we'll dive into this whole Call of Duty thing. November was a huge month for Nintendo, where the Switch was the best-selling console in the UK. According to Christopher Dring of Games Industry, the Switch saw a 175% surge in sales month on month, and the Pokemon OLED accounted for 8% of all consoles sold. Now, I'm pretty sure the release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was a huge, contributing factor to all of that. And as well, the fact that loads of retailers had some crazy Black Friday deals going on. And of course, people are going to be buying Switches up ready for Christmas presents this year. Next up, Mario Kart 8.5 Deluxe, as I like to call it. Wave 3 is now here, but the game has also been updated to version 2.2.0, which sees a bunch of issues fixed, along with some general changes, including adding custom items to item rules, getting struck by lightning whilst gliding no longer causes the gliders to close, invincibility after spinning or crashing now changes depending on the driver or the machine parts, and more. Now, I haven't played Wave 3 yet. I can't even remember if I played Wave 2. But let me know what your thoughts are if you have played Wave 3. Supposedly it's the best one yet. Now the big news. So Xbox's Phil Spencer released a tweet announcing that Microsoft has entered a 10-year commitment to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms, following the merger of Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. This is huge news, and I actually predicted this about 8 months ago when the whole thing about Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard arose. And you can see that video here on the channel if you want to know more. And Phil Spencer elaborated later in an interview with the Washington Post, saying that whilst a 10-year commitment is in place once the merge happens, if it even goes through, it would take some time to actually start development of these titles for Nintendo platforms. He also said that their plan would be to launch all new COD games on all platforms at the same time. So, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Switch will all see launches together. Now, when asked how Call of Duty would run on Nintendo consoles, he said, "How you run a development team that is targeting multiple platforms, that's experience that we have." Now, that last quote about developing games for different platforms and multiple platforms definitely gives me hope that these will be native ports over to Nintendo consoles as opposed to cloud versions, which AJ from our PlayStation channel 128KB News, go subscribe over there if you love all things PlayStation, pointed out as a possibility. The other thing to mention is we won't be seeing these games on the Nintendo Switch unless Nintendo milks several more years out of the system. Phil Spencer says it will take time to start development, which in my opinion is hinting that this will be for the next Switch iteration or Nintendo console, which hopefully will have much better hardware than the current versions. Now, one thing we absolutely must see as Nintendo players, right, because of Splatoon, is gyro aiming. They absolutely need to include gyro aiming for us that play on the Switch, because that's what everyone wants these days, You can't keep it too old school. You got to spice some things up, yeah? But I do hope that there is an option in the settings menu. And then also that makes me think, if there's gyro, will that then let motion controls effectively be used with the Joy-Cons? Could we go old school if you're like me and remember playing Call of Duty on the Wii with the actual motion controls? Is that going to be a possibility? I mean, that's probably going to be more of a novelty because, as we all know, Joy-Con motion sort of sensing aiming is absolutely rubbish. Just look at the House of the Dead remake. You can see my review of that on the channel, by the way. And the reason for that is pretty much just because there's no sensor bar. So the Wii was so good with the whole motion thing because it actually had a sensor bar, so it always knew where you're pointing. Whereas on the Switch, every time you use the Joy-Cons for aiming, well, it's done off the gyro and you constantly have to reset it. It's just rubbish. But actually having micro sort of aiming with the gyro, that makes sense. Now that makes sense, and we do need that, just like on Splatoon and other games like that. Regardless though, as an old school Call of Duty fan, I am super hyped with this. I really am. And let's hope that the Switch 2 or the Switch Pro, whatever's next, is what the games are going to be targeted to be launched on, because then we could actually have potentially a decent Call of Duty that we can play in handheld mode, and I am all for that. I really, really am. It would be handheld pretty much only for me. I'd love to just be able to whip it out, play some Call of Duty. That would be amazing. And let's hope it's not just the mobile ports. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this? I'd love to know, so let me know down in the comments. Let's hope Microsoft actually pulls through and completes the merger with Activision Blizzard and then makes all this a reality for all of us, right? Because that would be amazing. And if you want to see that older video where I talk about Call of Duty on a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo console again, you can see that here. And if you want something new, well, check out the attachment for the Hori split pads, which turns your Hori split pad Pros or Compacts into a wired controller for use when the Switch is docked. Go and do that and subscribe. Subscribe first and then do that. And I'll see you in the next one.